The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
We've had 3 different winners to kick off the 2021 Lionheart IndyCar Series, but we head to upstate New York and the roller coaster known as Watkins Glen International. The championship favorites came out swinging with Adam Blocker and Sage Karam taking victories, but last time out it was an emotional victory for Jason Galvin as he stormed to the checkered flag at Phoenix. Now though, we head to a track where Sage Karam has taken victory in the last 2 years, and he looks to set Lionheart history here at the SimXperience Grand Prix of Watkins Glen, presented by Chris Fowler Racing. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and continued coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by Hyperx, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, Hyperx knows we're all gamers. For more information on Hyperx products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. I'm joined by Justin Prince, as always, for today's coverage. TV cameras are provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras provided by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading on over to timing71.org to follow your favorite team and drivers in the real and virtual worlds of motorsport. Let's dive straight into our pre-show presented by Butt Kicker. And Justin, back to the road courses we go, in a race where strategy is going to be crucial because two tire compounds as always, but really it's the fuel that we need to consider.
Absolutely, it's expected to be a two-stopper on the gas, but the interesting mark is going to be how those stints go for these drivers today. The most they can go is about 14 laps on a stint expected for today's race. And for some drivers, it's going to be intriguing on how they divide up when they use the various tire compounds and when they elect to come in for either their first or second stops, whether they try to divide it up evenly, whether they try and go as long as they can, or whether they try and mix things up for the second stop or even the first stop. There's so many different ways drivers can take this race, Arjuna, and this is going to be an interesting one as a result in regards to that strategy with our second road course race of the season.
And only 4 rounds into a very long championship, stretches into the months of December. And our second road course, we saw Karam dominate the streets of Long Beach, but I don't think it's going to be so easy. We saw Joshua Chin really push him 12 months ago here in the second closest Lionheart history. But an important race here because I think the most sort of a NASCAR-style road track, and I mean that, and it's going to produce the most type of draft type of racing, Justin. Mid-Ohio, the next Indy GP. They're a lot more tight and technical. This is an opportunity for, I think, some new faces to rise to the top.
Yeah, many different drivers seem to succeed here, whether it's in the Retro Series or whether it's in the IndyCar Series. Mike Rasmus is one of the drivers I'm looking at, for example, who's been lightning quick here as a result of some of the draft. Brian Otis in the Retro Series, always very quick here. And you can't count on drivers like Henry Bennett, like Conor Harrington, who look very comfortable here today. All those drivers have been lightning quick throughout testing. All those drivers have been lightning quick throughout final practices throughout the day today. All those drivers could migrate their way to the front here in this one.
Let's take a look at the driver standings 3 rounds in. It is Adam Blocker on his quest for a 4th consecutive championship here with a slight advantage over Conor Harrington. Only 3 rookies, but Jason Brophy, Henry Bennett, Lionel Kalisto, they're names to watch out for. And as mentioned, Sage Karam, who had to miss out last time at Phoenix, Justin, because of some real-world commitments, returns today, and he needs victory to really punch his ticket back into the top 10.
Yeah, he is very deep in the field in terms of the points, all the way in the back half of the top 20 with just 72 total points. You can see how important those points are if you need to get yourself in the top 10. So for Karam, it's going to be important to make sure he executes the strategy right from the get-go. And he's talked about before at Long Beach, for example, how he likes the reds. I wouldn't be surprised to see him run on those reds earlier and try and run away if he can get some good qualifying position. But when it comes to this championship fight, many different drivers have been battling for consistency. Joshua Chin had bad luck at Long Beach, for example. Jason Brophy, not the best driver on the road courses. Some of those drivers are going to really shuffle today in the standings.
These standings presented by Butt Kicker. Quick look at the team standings, as always presented by Hyperx. A private label, Team Hype, have really started this season off well. Almost 80 points clear of the rest of the field. You can see a good fight between Graphics Esports, LPM, Sim Racing, Merch Esports, and Synergy Racing. And in fact, 3 through 8 separated only by 30 points. That will be something that we want to watch out for. Now we'll make our way over into the Rookie Championship here, presented by Butt Kicker as well. This is the one where I'm really interested in. You've got Brophy versus Bennett, but then some very interesting names as well. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, for example, Justin, who has not really enjoyed the most auspicious of starts to his Lionheart racing career.
Yeah, at Phoenix, I can remember a couple times where he got into some trouble, especially with that big incident where he lost his back wing, then crashed into turns 1 and 2. He's going to be looking for a bit of redemption, to say the very least, tonight. But this is also a chance for a pick-me-up, I think, for drivers like Rasmus, because he's always been known, especially in the road course, to be deceptively strong, even with the stock car racing background as well as his open wheel racing background. It's going to be intriguing, though, I think, what happens at the top of the standings here with Henry Bennett, known for being so good on road courses, where he didn't have the best of races at Long Beach. I think today, though, is going to be different, with there being more passing opportunities as well as slipstream opportunities throughout this race today.
And so those are our championships. Quick look at the series details. As always, presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. A custom fixed setup, Justin, talking to some of the drivers in the build-up to this race, sounds like it might be a little bit tight, and at a track like this, especially, we're taking a look right now at the outer loop, a very long sweeping right-hander, which almost works in effect like an oval corner, if you ask me. Those in-car tools, they'll be crucial over the course of these 14-lap runs.
Extremely crucial, because for several drivers, been watching along with them, they've been struggling with the push on the corner apex off, it seems, around this racetrack for today. So they're definitely going to have to utilize the weight jacker and try and utilize their various tools to make sure they get proper rotation if they want to keep up the pace and want to stay up towards the front. So we'll have to see who's the best at making sure they adapt to that and who's got the experience and preparation put in to know when they have to use which adjustments at what time at what parts of the racetrack.
And so this is our 8th trip to upstate New York in 9 years of LIS. I mean, 1 year we did come to the Cup configuration, which of course the NASCAR Cup Series comes and races at. That was a very quick race. The average speed was 144.460 miles an hour, but last time we came here 12 months ago, 141.304 gives you an indication of just how strong this field is in the road courses. And Pole has won all but one race here, Justin, but with strategy being so important, I think Karam's quest for a third consecutive victory here is not going to be as easy as it was 12 months ago.
Yeah, especially with the tire compounds, but keep in mind, Karam's always been very dominant on the road courses, especially when it comes to the invitations as well as this series, so it's going to be interesting how things play out. It was talked about by Blocker in the last race. He focused a lot on the points itself for the championship in the early stages. Does he try and fight Karam this race? Do we see Otis qualify well in this race and be one of the contenders early on? Do we see Joshua Chin show similar speed to Season 8? It's all going to be interesting on how this plays out. There's different ways this race could play out, and it all depends on track position, track position, track position. It's going to be difficult to try and move your way through the field for the back half. You want to qualify up in the front if you want a chance to win.
And qualifying underway. Aaron Morgan on provisional pole. He's been very quick on some of these road courses. Let's talk a bit about this one in particular, though, Justin. A very unique layout. Down the hill you plunge into the first corner, rise up through the S's into the bus stop chicane, then you work your way into the boot section. First through the toe, then in through the heel, back onto this track. Final two corners, very quick, very easy to get wrong, and across the start-finish line for a very quick lap time, just under 1 minute 30 seconds.
And the best passing opportunities for drivers today going to be that run potentially towards the inner loop for those daring, but as well potentially inside the boot. Many different drivers make mistakes going through that outer loop in towards the chute before heading their way towards Toad. Several drivers did that in the retro race, if you think back a couple weeks ago, for example, in that section. So expect a lot of drivers to be able to utilize some of their tools and be able to utilize some of the mistakes in that section. The best opportunities as well, though, going to be run up to the 90 as well today down that front straightaway.
And so with 4 minutes left in qualifying, let's see if we can jump on board maybe for an onboard lap here. It's Joshua Chin, 1,000th quicker than the 48 car Aaron Morgan. Let's jump on board, though, with the series champion as he works his way down into turn one, braking just before the 100-meter board, all the way to the inside curb. You can run out wide and build your momentum up through the S's, minimize the distance that you travel. Because already upwards of 260 kilometers an hour is Adam Blocker the last time around, 127.094, 1.5 tenths clear of the number 93 car. flying his way down into the bus stop, braking just at the marshal post on the left-hand side, down through the gears, as Ryan Otis now up into provisional second. 8 thousandths between the 1 and the 95. The qualifying times very much close between the top 10 as Adam Blocker down in through the chute. Uses a bit of the inside curve. Don't know if that's necessarily the best line. Wonderful look here as you'll climb up this braking zone. You can brake a bit deeper and use the fact that you're climbing up the hill and do the same thing, getting the power down. But we will have to watch out for cars spinning out of the toe. It's a very easy thing to do with 700 brake horsepower in the Stellara IR18 as Adam Blocker now in through the final couple of corners for rejoining up this left-hand hairpin. You want to avoid clipping that inside curve, but you can also unsettle yourself in a multitude of other ways. But in through this final corner, it will be all about trying to just get as much momentum. Oh, he clips the inside curve. That's not necessarily the best. Hits the wall as well. Not going to be the best lap time for him. And Joshua Chin here has gone to provisional pole, Justin.
Oh, and that's a big hit as well, as that's going to really disrupt how Blocker tries to take this well. But for Chin, you're going to be surprised. Came up in second position last year, as talked about in this race by 1.8 seconds. So he's someone that can be very quick here on the road courses. He had different strategies, remember, though, at Long Beach. Sage Karam, meanwhile, only 4th in qualifying so far. Needs to pick up a couple tenths to get up to Joshua Chin's 126.9.
Yeah, this is going to be a crucial lap for Sage Karam, especially in the context of the race where you don't really want to be on the outside, if you ask me, and especially behind Adam Blocker. Although I guess maybe not the worst position to be behind. Someone who definitely will try slinging it maybe around the outside of the king of chins as more and more cars finish up. You get 4 laps to set your fastest lap time here. Solo car qualifying, which of course means the drivers get uninterrupted access to the track here, Justin.
Interesting line they're taking in the toe, I've noticed. We've seen Blocker try and utilize a bit of that seam before and utilize the pathway of that racetrack in the toe when he ran his lap before he had that incident in his lap 3. Karam electing to go more of a flatter entry in some of these corners. We'll see if this is going to help him out or if he's going to be able to pick up enough time that he's put in some decent amount of heat into these tires. This is going to be critical. No curbing.
Oh, it almost gets up into the wall, but so much speed is the Coanda SimSport driver carrying across the line. And what is the lap time? A 126.804 at the last second. Race winner the last 2 years, Justin. He'll start then on provisional pole because I don't think anyone's going to pip that lap time.
Yeah, that's an incredible lap time. One of the quickest of the day so far. Only Mike Rasmus had been able to put up a time like that in final practice for tonight. And Rasmus, for reference sake, qualified in 7th. So absolutely huge circumstances there. It's going to be interesting how the start goes as the last of the drivers try and get some more experience in these final few seconds of qualifying.
It's only 9 seconds left, so none of those drivers get the opportunity to finish up their lap times. Let's go trackside then here in upstate New York to take a look at the starting grid in your SimXperience Grand Prix of Watkins Glen. And on pole position, he returns to the Lionheart IndyCar Series with victory on his mind. A 126.804, and the number 2 car starts at the front of the field. Joshua Chin will line up on the outside then in the 93. Watch out for him to maybe employ some fuel-saving strategy. He is an expert in that art from the endurance racing side as well. Adam Blocker then will be on the inside of row number 2, defending series champion. And alongside him, the Lionheart Retro Series champion, Ryan Otis. Conor Harrington on the inside of row 3. Aaron Morgan, very quick here today, will line up on the outside of row 3. Mike Rasmus on the inside then of Stefan Larkamp, row 4. Brian Beard and Tyler Graff on the edge of the top 10. We'll be watching for them to see what they can do. Henry Bennett, not a great qualifying once more on the road side of things. And alongside him, his teammate Brian Carey. They have some work to do to challenge the private label Team Hype Machine. Jay Brunt in 13th position alongside Matt Taylor, who's been very strong in the past couple of weeks, not just in the IndyCar, but across of the Speedway and Retro Series as well. The Sandman back in 15th alongside his teammate Lionel Callisto. Damon Martinez, his teammate starts on pole. Martinez back in 17th position with Chris Fowler alongside him. Jason Brophy, Andrew Kinsella, well, their teams are battling it out in the championship standings. They've got some work to do back in 19th and 20th. Adam Fraser in 21st, alongside Samuel Ryman in 22nd. Chris Stouffer, Indiana's own. He's got a teammate alongside him as well. Not sure what's going on here in 24th position. Pairings of teammates up and down through the grid. Galvin and Houston in 25th and 26th. And Scott Holmes, Joe Branch, row 14, with James Paulson and Ricky Harding, row 15. 2 seconds then separating top 30 cars, with Luis Gonzalez Nunez 31st. Ron Hacker in 32nd, with Richie Hearn, Brian Greenlee, row 17 on this grid. Mike Rigney and Christopher Reagan, row 18, as the pace car rolls off here at Watkins Glen, and we get underway. We have a number of onboard cameras to take a look at, so let's walk you through them on this long pace lap. First up, it's Brian Beard, and he's got the Hyperx on board. Whatever you play, however you play, Hyperx knows we're all gamers, and Hyperx is always ready to game.
Ryan Otis has the SimXperience onboard camera. SimXperience, makers of the ActiveForce Pro V2 direct drive steering system. For more information, visit SimXperience.com.
Aaron Morgan has the Graphics Esports onboard. World-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit GraphicsEsports.com.
Chris Fowler has the Chris Fowler Racing onboard camera today. Join Chris Fowler on his sim racing journey through his live streams. Visit Fowler Racing on Twitch.
And of course, not just those 4 cars. Benefit of being on the virtual iRacing service, we get the onboard looks with every single car in this field. Long formation lap, Justin. It means I'm going to get your predictions here. Interesting call on strategy. No one in the top 10 elects to start on the reds, but Henry Bennett and Brian Carey, row 6 on this grid. They start on the black mark tires. They'll be looking to maybe run a little bit long. The transition point is expected to be about lap number 7, but when the blacks maybe start to pick up the pace. I'm curious what you think. Which strategy will come out on top?
It's going to be an interesting question, and I know a lot of the drivers at Long Beach were able to make the reds work when they started off on that strategy and then pull away. So I think that's looking like the better potential call, but the difference isn't too major, though, Arjuna. We were talking about this before the race between the reds and the blacks, so it's going to be interesting how Henry Bennett especially can make this work on the blacks to see if he can try and push longer here. It's going to be intriguing, though, when these drivers in turn on the reds elect to come in. The window is expected anywhere from lap 9 to lap 14 to start off this race today.
And of course, we've seen a couple of races be marred by cautions. No worry about that today, Justin. That might mean as well that it gives a little bit more flexibility in terms of that fuel window, which we talked about slightly earlier on.
Absolutely. So we might see drivers go for that 14-lap stint, for example, may then try and divide it up evenly. We may see drivers elect to take a short stint early on, then push it hard with the blacks, say, in the second stint. There's so many different ways you can break this race down. It's just going to be the matter of, can you get the track position for one, and can you make that strategy work and execute it well, too, for speed?
So, 37 laps, 125 miles about to get underway. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and at the front, it's Sage Karam and Joshua Chin. They finished first and second 12 months ago. Joshua Chin does not want Sage Karam to have an easy ride to a 3rd consecutive victory here at the roller coaster known as Watkins Glen International. 36 Indy cars ready to get underway here then for what should be a thrilling ride in round 4 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series as we get underway with a very early jump in the SimXperience Grand Prix of Watkins Glen, presented by Chris Fowler Racing. It's side by side as Adam Blocker throws the move down to the inside and gets up into 2nd position. Conor Harrington with a monster launch as well, already up into 4th position as up the hill we climb, Justin. It's side by side between Mike Rasmussen and Stefan Larkamp, but everyone on the push-to-pass button in the top 5.
That's going to be very critical for Adam Blocker early on and may change the complexion of how he approaches this race. He's talked about how difficult it was to make that move in the first couple laps at Long Beach. Now, we're going to have to see if Blocker's going to try and go for the race win, or if he's going to try and focus on the defense here, with several of these drivers already fanning out behind. Conor Harrington also picked up 2 spots.
Chin is down to 4th. Not a great launch there, and Karam, who went very early, I think caught out the King of Chins. He's now forced to maybe think about fuel saving and what he can do from there, because Ryan Otis already all over the rear end as we jump on board with the King of Chins. Let's jump on board with Ryan Otis down in towards the heel. Turn 8 for this lap number 1. A wonderful new addition to the RaceSpotTV graphics package. On the left side of the screen, you will see the driver's name illuminate when they get on the push to pass button. That extra boost of horsepower that they get to use 10 times in this race. At the front of your field, though, Sage Karam already 1.1 seconds clear as he comes through turn 11, Justin, to complete lap 1. Adam Blocker has got some work to do if he wants to challenge Sage Karam for the win in this race.
And it's so difficult when it comes to trying to match the consistency of Karam with what we've seen at Long Beach and what has been seen the past couple seasons. He's very dialed in and very focused when it comes to his braking marks. And there's two different approaches we've seen to the lines. The thing is, Blocker, I think, is a bit better in the bus stop in particular. And I'm curious to see that through the race. Chin, meanwhile, wants to try and use a push to pass to try and keep up with the draft of his teammate Harrington, it looks like, and try and keep the toe at the top couple drivers.
Yeah, I think he's right now a little bit just thinking about the tires, as well as I think Samuel Ryman started down on pit road and back out there on track at the very least. All 36 cars are still out there and circulating as we work lap number 2 here in upstate New York. It has been fairly chaotic further back in the pack. Henry Bennett has managed to get on past Tyler Groff, and that's crucial here, Justin, because he's on the black mark tires, and this will just enable him in the last and the middle stints to run on the reds as the track continues to get cooler. We haven't talked too much about the track conditions, but there you can see 41 degrees Celsius. It will continue to cool as we race into the evening here in Watkins Glen.
Especially when it comes to the cloud cover as well as the time progressing on forward. So this is going to be crucial, absolutely, for where drivers may elect to try and bank on those reds later on in this race as a result. So we'll have to see if that ends up being the case for some of these drivers. Keep in mind, the only going pace difference between Bennett and the top runners this time by only about a second or so, as now Graf wants it back.
And he's going to get it done as well. Not what Bennett wanted. Does that open the door for Carey to slip down in towards the bus stop? Up the hill they will work. And Justin, here comes the move as well.
Yes, indeed. Here we go. Brian Carey off to a good start of the championship standings. Has talked about several drivers trying to fan out. It looks like Tyler Graf, though, able to defend well, and that's one of the things I've noticed so far is drivers are not afraid to go all the way to the right side of the racetrack to defend that inside line. They don't want to give up the inside for the inner loop / bus stop. If you want to be able to enter that corner properly, you don't want to enter that side by side either, for obvious reasons, because of how tight the lane is there and how easy it is if you hit the grass to spin the car out.
Indeed. We'll jump further back in your pack. You can see so many cars that it sometimes just causes our computers to stutter a little bit, so we apologize for any brief technical issues. They should all be resolved as well. But look at this action as Andrew Kinsella on back has a queue of cars that are stacked up. It's side by side as Ricky Harding slips a move down the inside of Matt Houston. Reds versus blacks in terms of the tires. As, good save there from Ricky Harding, Justin. Very good car control to avoid causing a much bigger chain reaction.
Yeah, that could have been a bit disastrous there, especially with so many cars around. And for the Retro Series, incidents in this section of the racetrack were fairly big. You can see Ricky Harding had got a great corner exit. That set him up for the side-by-side in the first place here. But as soon as they get to the corner, this is going to enter the heel. Tries to take the bottom, wiggles a little bit in the first place, just loses the traction. And a great bit of car control indeed to be able to lock it down and save it. Only loses a couple positions in the process.
The jump back to the live pictures up the hill behind Richie Hearn, A number of drivers here on the button. Meanwhile, further up, Jason Brophy, I think, has just gotten around George Sandman into the bus stop with Adam Fraser. And race winner last time out, Jason Galvin, down in 20th position, Justin. It was a very emotional victory for the 42 car last time out, and I'm sure one that he'll be savoring for a long time to come.
We talked about it a bit with the Speedway Series race at Homestead Miami Speedway, where he was in contention too for victory there, where when it came to the race at Phoenix, of course, thumbs up, cancer down, big for his family, part of the charity, him and his wife. And also, it was his home racetrack, one where he announced at the facility. He's from the region. He studied collegiately at Arizona State. it was absolutely huge for Jason Galvin to win there. He always wants to do well at Phoenix, and guess what? He did that. And nearly got the chance to double it up at Homestead Miami too with the Speedway Series race as well, where that was a competitive one as well just a couple days ago.
Oh, that was awesome. I mean, you had side-by-side coming to the white flag. Just unfortunate contact between Chris Stouffer and Jason Galvin, of course, very magnanimous, both of them in their comments after the race, and I'm sure we'll see them back out on track in a couple of weeks' time, wheel to wheel, I'm sure. Aaron Morgan, by the way, was up on the button, up the hill in his 48 machine, trying to close on the Lionheart Retro Series champion Ryan Otis, who is focusing on this IndyCar championship, has been making some guest appearances in the Retro Series, but some incredible stuff back in the pack, Justin. I can't even unpick the number of moves that I'm seeing. 23rd on back. It's James Paulson, Chris Fowler, Matt Houston, Richie Hearn, and Ricky Harding. These are some very fun names. I don't know necessarily how close they are willing to race right now.
Yeah, right now, one of the main difficult parts when it comes to packs like this is a bit of the aero push, but at the same time, road course racing can be so very technical when it comes to where you hit your marks, how you hit the brakes, how you use the weight jacker, how you save the car like that again. Stuff like that to make sure you properly get yourself running around this racetrack. You make any little mistake here, it can cost you a ton of time. And one of the main key words, Arjuna, is confidence. That is always explained when it comes to the top racers, how you run these types of tracks. You don't have the confidence to hit the corners, then you struggle. You need to be able to put in that work to gain that confidence and gain that confidence to hit said marks around the circuit as here we go in the back.
Very confident is Richie Hearn, trying to sling it down the inside into turn one. Neither of these drivers on the button, and both of them on the primary tires. Less grip, but should last them slightly longer, or reaching that transition point as well. Side by side up the hill. I think the former Indy 500 competitor Richie Hearn should be able to get down the inside as they work down into the bus stop chicane. And the 70 machine up into 25th position as here comes Luis Gonzalez Nunez as well. Thinks better of it. He's had an incident-filled start to his Lionheart campaign. Wants to finish this race, I think, with some good points-paying positions, but it's still very early on. Up front, by the way, Justin, we haven't really talked about it. 2.4 seconds clear is Sage Karam as we watch Adam Blocker coming around to turn number 9. Conor Harrington still only 1 second off of Blocker, and you've got Joshua Chin in close pursuit as well. But Karam very much in control. Now the question becomes, what's happening on strategy?
I think Blocker right now is just electing to conserve a little bit, be a bit more patient on how he attacks this racetrack. Similar approach to Long Beach here. It's only a couple tenths of a second difference in the lap times right now. 127.6 for Karam last time, 127.9 for Blocker. So at this point, I think Blocker's just focusing on the task at hand. Hold on to second. Think about the pit window that's opening up already in about 7 laps or so at the very latest. And just get yourself to that mark, and then think about when you're going to use those blacks right now. And I think that's going to be the major difference is going to be when those drivers elect to use those tires and how the gaps fare out as a result here in this race.
Oh, look at this. To the inside goes Matt Taylor trying to get on past Brian Carey. Taylor on the blacks, but Martinez on the reds in behind. Wants, I think, to not lose too much time seeing these cars squabble. Still the highest placed of the black mark tires, Justin, in 11th position. 13 seconds adrift of Sage Karam. It'll be interesting to see how the pendulum maybe swings back in the favor of cars like Henry Bennett and Brian Carey later on in this race. Who knows? They still could be fighting for a podium come the end of these 37 laps.
The thing is, when it comes to some of the drivers on the blacks, they need to find a way to pick up about a couple tenths of a second here in terms of the difference of the fall-off. I'm curious how it plays out with that cliffing point now this lap, because Bennett's running 128.7s and has been really struggling on corner exit. And it's been, for all of these drivers, all of them seem to be plowing on corner exit with that tightness that you were talking about, needing to get on that weight jacker, especially when it comes to some of the right-handers I've noticed.
On board with Damon Martinez across the start-finish line. In 14th position as you see Joshua Chin on the button trying to close the gap to his teammate, because they've started to fall off the tail end of Adam Blocker very slightly, and Ryan Otis is closing on the number 93 car. Up the hill, no usage here in this group, so let's jump forward to Harrington and Chin as they work their way through the outer loop. And for the private label Team Hype Machine, Justin, this is what they want to see. Their two teammates running in third and fourth, because Adam Blocker, yes, he's part of Adrenaline Power Slide, but it's Adrenaline Red, Henry Bennett and Brian Carey and Andrew Kinsella, the trio there. They're all out of the top 10. Third and fourth should extend their points advantage.
This organization has done an incredible job working together and picking up talent for this season for the Lionheart IndyCar Series. They've all been quick, especially on the oval so far, especially with Jason Brophy in that camp. I think that's really helped them in their oval program as well with some of his experience on the NASCAR side. The road course side, they also have picked up two of the best they can. We talked about Chin, for example, known for being able to save fuel and how he's been able to run, for example. Conor Harrington's also a very consistent road course racer in himself, the open wheel machines, and we've seen that throughout the race. They're near identical, these two in their lap times. The thing they have to also keep in mind, though, is Ryan Otis is keeping the pressure up right behind him as well to make this a battle.
So is Aaron Morgan. You know, let's jump on board with one of our cameras. As I say that, I think there's an incident to take a look at. Ooh, Luis Gonzalez Nunez pointed in the wrong direction at a very tricky turn 9 section. A number of cars getting on the button right now, but let's go take a look at the RaceSpotTV replay then, Justin, and in the pack of cars as well. This is going to be a very dramatic incident side by side. I believe that would be Christopher Reagan in the 19 machine all the way into the grass, and a vicious snap there. Not sure who that is that has to come all the way to a stop basically to let them on past.
I believe that might have been, if I'm looking at things correctly, that was Brian Greenlee who had to dodge that by slamming the brakes. You're going to see it was very tight. Nunez, I believe, didn't get hit by anyone, surprisingly. Yeah, locked up the right front, you've seen as well, Greenlee, so that's going to affect him for the rest of this run.
Good avoidance there, Justin, though. I mean, that was a big grouping of cars, and so we still now have 36 of our starters all out on track, working lap number 9 in this race. That was pretty good, and I think an indication of that this IndyCar series, really the pinnacle is Damon Martinez with a nasty wiggle coming through turn 9 of his own. Really the pinnacle of all of the 3 series that we've seen. It's also been one where the number of penalties has been on the lower side, and I know series organizer George Anzaldo is very thrilled about how that's gone.
Absolutely, this has been a very clean race so far with a lot of respect shown by the competitors, but strategy has opened up here, Arjuna. Matt Taylor has elected to come in a little bit early, and this is what we talked about. Some drivers may elect to try and go a little bit early on their strategy calls to be able to then switch maybe the tire compounds, or in that case, keep the tires, as it looks like Nunez may have had another problem possibly.
Let's take a look. Same corner. Ooh, into the wall as well. Let's take a look at the onboard if we can. I'll need a better look. Here we go. This is the angle, just all the way up the track, and I don't know how he gets away with not losing his right front there, Justin, but that is some serious contact to not have any damage, maybe some steering damage. That's the extent of it.
He's definitely got some right front wing damage. Same entire quarter complex just went up in the marbles. Ooh. As one more car's around in the middle of the racetrack.
It's Scott Holmes in the 67. This is coming out of the outer loop. A very quick place to have an off, and another machine, Justin, with no damage. Let's take a look at the replay and talk us through it. Richie Hearn with some dodgy internet, as he's known for in the background. Ooh, there's contact between the two of them.
Just got into the very back end of his rear end, and let's take another look here. Hearn definitely had the momentum here in the corner, carried a little bit too much there in that situation. Just a love tap. Spins him right around, and an error. Good job by all those competitors going to the left side to be able to avoid him, be able to get out of the way of harm's way. Meanwhile, the race leader's still continuing to stay on the racetrack.
It's 3.6 seconds clear as well. That is a healthy advantage for Sage Karam. It's starting to get to the point, Justin, where strategy can only do so much. I mean, if you can gain 7 seconds in the pit cycle, that's wonderful, but we're, tickling being done with almost halfway through this race, and Adam Blocker is 4 seconds adrift from Sage Karam right now.
Yeah, that's going to be where you're just hoping for a mistake or traffic to hold up Karam if it gets to that point at this rate, because Karam, he's starting to fall off. But the problem is that short run's pace is so dominant from Karam, from that real experience. And look at that push to pass with the circle. He's only used one, if I'm reading that correctly, so far, too. He's done this on raw talent.
He has. I'm loving the telestrator. Always must have it ready to go as across the start-finish line to complete lap 11. Sage Karam searching for his third consecutive victory. It was a closer one 12 months ago as Joshua Chin really did push Karam all the way to the end. I tell you what, this is a good opportunity to talk about Karam in a bit more detail, Justin. SimXperience driver profile, 33 starts, 15 top 10s, 14 top 5s, 8 wins and 6 poles as well. He started his career on a road course at Phillip Island, the land down under, one of my favorite tracks to bring a Dallara IR18 to, but took his first victory at this very track 3 years ago, excuse me.
And keep in mind that win total is also 6th all-time in the IndyCar series for victories entering today's race, and he's slowly moving his way towards what is a very illustrious club of double-digit winners, just 5 of them in the history of the IndyCar series. Blocker, Wright, Guerin, Vincent, and Kinsella are those drivers. So, with how he's been faring, there's a chance he can get number 9 tonight. As long as he stays out of trouble here is the key part.
And I think 12 months ago, if I'm not remembering incorrectly, because I was taking part in this race 12 months ago, he had some trouble with traffic on the final lap. So we'll wait and see if those words prove prophetic. I think George Sandman has had his own technical issue. He's falling down the timing screens. And reminder, racebot.wtf/Indy, you can take a look as there comes Conor Harrington. That releases his teammate who gets on the button straight away. He's already burned 4 of his push-to-passes, Justin. That's not ideal 13 laps into this race. Karam, in comparison, we just saw using his second right now.
Yeah, that is not good whatsoever, because that's going to make it very hard to defend later on in this race to Ryan Otis and some of the other drivers, but as well, it's going to make it hard to try and make a pass if you want to try and make a move later on, where someone else may have several more push-to-passes to defend themselves. So that's going to be absolutely huge later on as Harrington quickly off and away with one of the quickest pit stops so far in the race. 31.3 in the lane, 8 seconds in the box.
And you can see straight away on the button, he knows that cold tires on the black marks as well. He's got to get up to speed as quickly as he can and make this undercut work. Into the bus stop, he will work full speed ahead then in the 44 machine. And if you're wondering why the 44, yes, of course, he is a Lewis Hamilton fan. People can have multiple interests. Here's Ryan Otis on the tail of Joshua Chin. In a good position is the Lionheart Retro Series champion. Couple of replays, I think, to take a look at, but we'll have to wait and get to them in just a bit of time because we are midway through the pit cycle. Don't want to turn our eyes away because here comes Sage Karam down onto pit road, lap 13. I would think Adam Blocker stays out, and indeed, lap 14 for the defending series champion, the king of chins, known for fuel saving, Justin, but here he comes as well.
Likely coming in a match right now, a decent entry for both of those drivers, all those drivers, in fact. Give credit to Aaron Morgan. He's also held on to the top 6 throughout this entire run. He's been having a stellar 2021 in Lionheart competition. Also in for this pit stop sequence. But it's going to be interesting how Blocker now fares here. He's already on the button, and you can just see how much he's pushing to the bus stop. There was a time in practice tonight, Arjuna, where he went off in the grass and had to go full lock to try and save the car in front of a whole heap of traffic. That's how confident he is in that section of the racetrack.
And this is not going to help Karam out. He's come out right behind Power Slide teammate for Adam Blocker, Chris Stouffer. He'll pull to the side, though. He does not want to be behind the raging bull that is Sage Karam at times, especially through the tricky inner loop. Update from Race Control, Justin. We've got a penalty. It's the number 70 car. Drive-through penalty for avoidable contact. That's Richie Hearn then in the pink and black Dallara IR18.
And he's already coming for service. That's going to really hurt Richie Hearn's race, absolutely. Since he was doing a decent job before then, he's going to really lose a ton of time on the racetrack. But the difference between Karam and Blocker, about 25 seconds. It's going to be interesting overall how the time fares out here, Arjuna.
and it's reds versus blacks. As you can see, all of the top 10 basically that did come down over the last couple of laps. They've moved on to the primaries. Blocker comes down. Will he shed the alternates? Or will he put on a second set? You would have to think that the wise thing to do would be to get the black mark tires right now on the car. 38 degrees Celsius and continuing to drop. And in a shorter stint at the end, you'd have to assume red mark tires would be the preference. There goes Sage Karam back into the lead as Adam Blocker off of the jacks and off into the race once more. Here comes Conor Harrington. Is he going to be slightly closer on the warmer tires? Off of pit road, the gap's still 1.5 seconds, so not ideal. And as Joshua Chin burns another one of his push-to-passes, he's feeling the pressure now from Ryan Otis in behind.
Yeah, and Ryan Otis, you can see, only has used a couple of his push-to-passes. Chin, just at this point, I think is going to be in a tough spot later on in this race at this rate with how he's using the buttons. Otis, meanwhile, it's very smooth. This is the smoothest we've seen him so far this season. As talked about, this is a track he's very confident at, and this was a track that he was in contention for the victory in the Retro Series when he made an appearance there, and also when it came to an appearance at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park a couple weeks back.
That was a very fun race as well. A left side of the screen, Justin. Not sure if you caught this one, but I do like to break out my telestrator. Let's see if I can do this. Just about here. Unfortunately, it's going to be behind the ticker itself. But 3 push-to-passes left in this race for Brian Beard. So he's really been abusing that button. And if you ask some of the esports people, spamming the amount of power that he gets. But it puts him in a bit of a hole. We talked about this, I think, the last time we were at one of the road tracks. It's not just push-to-pass. It's push to defend as well, and when you've got such a long run uphill from turn 1 down into the bus stop, it's a valuable tool that you might want later on in the race.
Hence why I'm surprised so much that Beard has gone to that point where he's felt that much pressure from Stephen Larkamp to be able to use that button that many times. Wondering if he's also trying to make sure he keeps up with Mike Rasmus at this point, but it's going to be really tough if you don't have any push to passes to be able to defend later on in this race. By the way, Harrington did get a little bit closer with the strategy, it looks like, out of the pit stop sequence. Blocker's already lost a second to Karam since the pit stops, and since Karam's gone back in clean air.
Karam now up to 5-second advantage. Let's go take a look at some of the replays from just before we got into the pit stop cycle. First up, it's something that's happened to Richie Hearn, Justin. Let's see. In towards the heel, just a little bit too fast, locks the inside front. Oh, it doesn't avoid the outside wall. I suspect there's no damage enabled for this race, Justin, because we've seen that on a number of occasions. I don't think that's necessarily what would happen if an IR-18 went off there.
I mean, he did have a 24-second pit stop after the penalty.
You're right.
You see, he did get some left front wing damage. You see a big crinkle for Richie Hearn. In fact, on there from the hard hit.
No, you are right. It just was maybe a bit more minor than I expected, given the speed of the contact. He didn't necessarily scrub the most that you'd expect. Ooh, look at Jason Brophy wiggling his tail through turn number 1. Just about able to hang on to that one. Still in 22nd position. Let's jump on board here, Justin, and take a look once more.
He was running in the middle of the field in about the teens before this situation. You see, just on the corner exit, takes a little bit too much curb. Maybe the weight jacker may be a factor in again, but a great job to lock it down and prevent it from hitting the barrier. Just lost him a ton of time trying to get it back going. He's lost all the positions he had gained in this race.
So where are some of the cars that took the black mark tires to start? There's Bennett, and Carey is still in close pursuit, down in 12th and 13th respectively. So hasn't cycled out the way they expected, but I think that's because, Justin, you've got the likes of Matt Taylor, who's up 4 positions on the day. That's had a very good run, and a number of other cars that have maybe pipped some of these contenders.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how Bennett fares here, if he can get himself up to graph again. Matt Taylor, there isn't much difference I've noticed, though, in the lap times quite yet compared to the reds and the blacks for Bennett, though. That's the kicker. So that's the tough part here, where there's that minimal difference. It's just the wonder of, can Bennett pick up the pace and find that little extra bit of speed here this run? Now, especially with some of the aero wash that might come to factor in when you're so close, like this, for example, to some of these cars.
Especially coming through this penultimate corner, very difficult to try and build yourself and get that momentum down into turn one. It's Adam Fraser who's defending from Andrew Kinsella, up 5 and 3 respectively. Kinsella looking to try and demote Fraser down. Won't get it done in through turn one, but let's jump on board with the Canadian. He's already to the inside as we come up through the S's, on the button as well. As they go side by side, the 17 won't fight that one off, but here comes George Sandman as well, Justin, and guess what? He's on the button as well.
Going to be an interesting battle, absolutely, but that defense for the push to pass coming in critical. Not able to dive it down to the inside, though, that time. Back single file, though. They thought about it, but just not close enough to be able to get the full move done.
And I think, actually, Fraser got on the button in defense, coming through the right-hand king at the very top of the hill, so he burned effectively one of those usages when he really didn't need to. That's a shame for him. He's down to just 2 left on the day. Let's jump slightly further up in your field very briefly, just to touch on the gaps that are starting to continue to grow, as you see Adam Blocker in through the final corner, Gap to third place, Conor Harrington now up to 1 second as Karam down in through turn 1, starting lap number 19. Halfway through this race, Justin, and Karam is in dominant control. He's looking odds on to take a 3rd victory in a row.
A big historical mark for him to get himself to 9 victories already in this series. When it comes to these road courses, he's just lights out. He was lights out in the Retro Series here at this racetrack. He's been lights out here today. Just very consistent and dialed in on how he's been able to make his marks around this racetrack today. It's going to be difficult for Karam to be stopped.
We're going to step aside for a short commercial break here live on RaceSpotTV. Don't go anywhere. The second half of this race is right after these messages. Things are heating up here in upstate New York as we're back live here on RaceSpotTV from the SimXperience Grand Prix of Watkins Glen. Look at this wonderful 3-car fight on the edge of the top 10 with Tyler Groff, Henry Bennett, and Brian Carey doing battle. But guess what? It's Sage Karam domination once more, and my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside is Justin Prince. A bit more of a calm race than we expected, but it very much is Sage Karam domination, 6.5 seconds clear. You will see a little bit of a gaggle here forming for second on back.
Yeah, Harrington's been able to slowly but surely reel back in Blocker throughout all this, as well as Joshua Chin. Keep in mind, But the push to pass has been the talking point throughout this race. Chin among those who have been very aggressive to try and utilize the push to pass to keep up. That they've been able to break away from the toe of Ryan Oates and Aaron Morgan as a result. It's going to be interesting if Blocker can keep on defending here on these blacks as these drivers now slowly but surely approach the next pit stop window in the next couple laps.
Working lap 21 with a roughly 14-lap stint, but of course a bit more flexibility given in a 37-lap race. You can't effectively do this on just a single stop, and it does mean that you can be a bit more flexible, and I don't think we've necessarily seen that flexibility come out from some of the contenders further up, but the likes of Matt Taylor, Justin, have used that to their advantage. One of the biggest movers in the top 10. He's up 4 positions into 10th right now.
Yeah, he's done a very impressive job. He's one of the quickest drivers on the racetrack, in fact, right now in the Reds, and that's helping him a little bit. The tough part is for Taylor, it's going to take another 3 seconds of time gained for him to get up to the next pack, and he's on the undercut strategy. Remember, he ended up pitting about 2 to 3 laps earlier than a majority of the field. So that's going to mean he's going to be offset here by that significant margin. He is approaching his window to pit for the next stop in the next couple laps here, coming up to 15 to go.
Wouldn't be surprised to see him down in 2 laps time then, as you saw Joshua Chin burning 1 more of his push to passes. He's down to just 4 left on the day. Don't know how many more he will need, though, because it is looking very difficult to pass, Justin. We did hear some comments from drivers coming in that it was a bit pushy, a bit understeery in effect. It means it's difficult to run close, especially at a track like this where the average speed last year upwards of 140 miles an hour.
Yeah, and that's obviously being seen throughout all of this, especially with the aero wash, too, which adds in to all that tightness, Arjuna, and that's the tough part, is trying to manage the tires enough to be able to pounce and take advantage, because if it was more on the looser side, you might have drivers though on the very edge to where they might snap loose. So it's the tough balancing act of being a builder when it comes to a setup where you have to be able to also adjust as a driver to the driving style required.
Very much so. Let's take a look, by the way, at a RaceSpotTV replay. Not sure exactly what we're going to see. It's the 17 of Adam Frazier. Ooh, getting it very wrong on the entry into the boot. There is significant damage. We were waiting for someone to be claimed the victim of the roller coaster that is known as Watkins Glen International. One more look, Justin, at this one. It just gets the braking a little bit wrong. Car snaps around on him, and right front gone, and has to tow his way back down onto pit road.
Yeah, it just looked like the second it stepped out and the second he overcorrected, it just lost all traction and that car was gone, especially once it hit the grass. But pit windows have opened up. Samuel Ryman, who is among the early pitters, has elected to come in for his final scheduled stop.
So pit window open. Ryman, the first of the cars down. One more replay to take a look at. So it started off fairly clean. Ron Hacker, I think, has pulled to the side and maybe retired. Not sure if there was some...
I think he blew an engine here, Arjuna.
Let's spool it back even further then. Very good spot, Justin. Jumping on board with the 21 car, and indeed, ooh, that is disaster for Ron Hacker, Justin. Let's spool it back one more time and listen to the sound of the engine. And so talk us through this one, Justin, as we listen to these sounds coming down in through the chute. He's just going to shift down, I think, by mistake, and not sure if the engine was just in that optimal range to blow the engine.
Now you're going to see right here, he actually gets it jammed in neutral. It gets stuck in neutral when he goes down to second, and then he can't get it out of neutral, so it essentially gets stuck on those very top-end revs, and I think that's what pops the motor, Arjuna.
That is a shame as well. He was not having a terrible day, very much using the attrition. Sounds like then 2 cars retired out of our 36 starters. Still 34 out there on track with 30 of them on the lead lap. Lap traffic will increasingly become a factor. Here is Sage Karam working his way down into the heel. Justin, relatively clean air in front of him. But like I said, he's got a couple of cars coming up in front. There's Tony Shawun, who I think has had a small issue of his own. Excuse me, Scott Holmes has had a subsequent issue. Keep on board with Karam here. Scott Holmes is towed back to pit road.
And that could have been scary a little bit there to see a car stop to the side of the racetrack. Curious to see what happened to him, as I believe he, massively cooked the corner, and when he overcorrected, just bobbled into the grass and sheared off the left side pod of his car and damaged that car.
Now that's what I expected to happen to Richie Hearn. Oh, look at the extent of the damage as well. Very quickly realizes, get out of the way of the race leader, Sage Karam. I think very grateful as to what happened there, Justin. Let's pick up live coverage once more. Sage Karam on the button up the hill. I think he's got the message. This is an important part of the run now. He's got to get the fast laps done before he comes down onto pit road.
He can come down any time as well. He's running half a second quicker than many of these drivers, as several of them have elected to come in. Beard, Graf, Kalisto, this time by, have elected to come in for an earlier stop. And we've seen how powerful some of these decisions can be to gain you about a second or so on the racetrack. The fall-off has reached about 1.1 to 1.5 seconds at the very end of the run compared to the start of the run.
Watch this merge off of pit road. How close is it between Galvin and Brian Beard? Beard down to just one push to pass left in the last 13 laps or so of this race. Beard should hold track position, but now on the black mark tires. Talking about the weather, Justin, down to 37 degrees Celsius. Not as cool as maybe we expected, but still got plenty of time left in this race. We could see the track temperatures drop by another 5 degrees, really making those red mark tires very powerful as Sage Karam makes his way down onto pit road.
And that's going to make things very interesting in terms of those temperatures. But the thing is as well, with the higher the speeds, the more temperature potentially for the engine, Arjuna. And that was a talking point for some of the drivers on the series Discord as well throughout the week, that around this stint onward, drivers were reporting very hot engine temperatures. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on throughout the rest of this race to see if drivers can keep their engines cool too.
So Karam off of pit road, no fuss there, excuse me. 7.9 stationary. Cycles back into 8th position. And with 12 to go here in Watkins Glen as he searches for a third consecutive victory. Adam Blocker now net race leader as Jason Brophy, the next car down onto the pit road. Joshua Chin has cycled out right behind Chris Stouffer. Not for the first time does Stouffer have to deal with cars getting themselves back up to racing speed. Stouffer, though, not willing to let King of Chins by that easily. Of course, this time on the red mark tires as well, so I think that might be playing somewhat of a factor here. Is down into the bus stop as well. Brian Beard, Jason Galvin, and Matt Taylor side by side, as Galvin, race winner 1 week ago, Justin, says, no thank you, I'll let you go through.
Smart decision there to make sure you don't make the contact there, but you can see Galvin's been very conservative on the push to passes, as well as Adam Blocker, it seems. Both 7 apiece remaining as Harrington's ducked in. Blocker can go an extra couple laps here. He can still go to about 8 laps to go on the gas.
Aaron Morgan, Ryan Otis, they're both down on pit road as well. It's been a fairly solitary race for the 95 and the 48, but this is the important lap then for Adam Blocker. What can he do in terms of Harrington and Chin? Chin, of course, will have lost a little bit of time to Chris Stouffer, who he's still stuck behind. There comes Stouffer down onto pit road. There comes Harrington out of his box as well. I think he should just about cover off his teammate. His teammate, though, already up to speed. Harrington gets on the button up the hill. And plenty of clear air between the two teammates. Harrington looking good then for a podium position here today. Adam Blocker last time around a 1:28.040. That is not necessarily the quickest lap time, Justin, but is very consistent, and that's what's more important this late in the run.
Yeah, that consistency to be able to hit your marks, be able to properly get the lap times together, that's all very critical if you want a shot to be able to run well with these types of races at this point. And the interesting thing is going to be if Blocker comes in this time, it's just a 21-second advantage over him and Karam at the moment. Looks like he is going to duck in.
So here we go, splits the end of this race a little bit more evenly. 14 laps to start, 12 this time. It'll be 10 laps to complete this race. Long wait as he gets down into his box. Sage Karam will cycle through. Let's pick up the two private label Team Hype teammates. There's Harrington, 1 second clear of his teammate as Karam on the button across the start-finish line. Will cycle back into the race lead, looking good for his third victory in a row. Blocker then off the jacks. Slightly slower pit stop than you might have expected, but he will still hold into second position, Justin. Crucially, 7 push-to-passes left to go, and it won't be about passing, it will be about defending. Already on the button, as all 4 of the top 4 illuminate on the timing screen.
How about all top 6 make it top 7 or so on the push-to-pass to try and push on forward?
Excuse me, Justin, did you just see that debris that went scampering through into the bus stop chicane?
I think I might have seen that possibly, and not sure who it was off of.
I think it might be this car, Jay Brandt. Let's spool it up and see what happened there. That was very interesting as we work through the end of this pit cycle. Sage Karam has abused that button. Is down to 1 left. No, it wasn't Jay Braun. It might have been the car in front who was Richie Hearn, so it was probably just a technical issue. Hearn lives in rural Nevada, so he's fortunate at times to have sufficient internet quality to go racing on the iRacing service, Justin. A testament to the hard work that the team does behind the scenes to engineer this wonderful simulation.
Absolutely. You can race from anywhere, essentially, from the world, and it's so incredible to see the opportunities drivers in turn have been able to get across this platform.
I'm sorry, Justin. I just saw the lap time that Sage Karam did the last time around. A 1:26.239. He's the only driver to have done a 26, and he's broken past the rest of the field by 9/10 of a second. That is astonishing as the two teammates get on the button. It looks like a battle between these two, Justin, for third position.
That's incredible. Just the best thing I can say on that. That's incredible from Karam, but I think the teammates at this point, I'm curious how Harrington plays this. And they have reeled in Blocker. Blocker has actually lost about 3 seconds in the past couple laps here that he had on that advantage over these two.
I think just trying to get the tires up to temperature, Justin, at this point in time. Crucially, left side of your screen, once more, we can show you the push-to-pass numbers. Joshua Chin down to just 1 left in this race. It will make these final 9 laps or so very difficult as he tries to look down the inside in towards the heel. Tucks back into line. Doesn't, I think, want to compromise the team points as well, Justin, because 3rd and 4th for private label Team Hype with Powerslide Adrenaline, or I forget what they're called, Adrenaline Red, excuse me, Henry Bennett, Brian Carey, Andrew Kinsella, all of those drivers a 10th on back. It's a very good look for them heading out of round 4 of this championship.
Yeah, at this point, I think you can see them working together here. If one of them gets held up by the other, you might see that decision come into play, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised to see them focus their efforts on trying to jump by Blocker, find a way to pass by Adam Blocker if they can, because they're quicker than Blocker right now on a bit older reds at the moment. So, and now the push to pass is starting to come in. Blocker's starting to feel the pressure, having to defend.
Still got 5 of them to 2 uses left for Harrington, so with 8 laps to go, Harrington has to choose his moment wisely here through the right-hand sweeper that's sometimes called the outer loop. I like to call it the carousel because it very much feels like a certain corner in Germany, which we will visit this coming weekend on RaceSpotTV. Down, though, into the toe. Gap between these 3 cars, 1.2 seconds, as they now find themselves 8.6 behind the race leader. For those in the YouTube chat that are wondering, Justin, they're asking about what happened to Karam on that lap to really propel him to be 9/10 quicker than anyone. I think it was a bit of push-to-pass usage there. I don't know how many times he used it, but 1, 2, or 3.
How about all of them? He's out of push-to-pass, so my answer would probably be all of them.
Well, whatever it was worth, I'm sure I don't know if that's a lap record. I have to take a look now. No, it's not, because the lap record is a 1:24 set a couple of years ago on the older tire model. But nevertheless, a benchmark time as Adam Blocker once more on the button. I think he's feeling a little bit more concerned about Harrington and Chin behind. And up the hill they go. Check in with the battles further back. Henry Bennett and Brian Carey on the alternate strategy. Now swarm Stefan Larkamp, who finds himself at the closing stages of this race, Justin, on the primary Mark tire.
Carey's had a very quiet and solid race so far. He's been running around this spot all day long. I think at this point, he's definitely got the speed to be able to get inside the top 10 once more. But the tough part is, guess who's leading this train? Henry Bennett, who's now on those reds and has been getting better and better as this race has gone on. His graph has now had to come in with an issue, it looks like.
Yeah, I saw he was off track for a few moments. Wasn't sure exactly what had taken place, but in through turn 1, we saw... another car that's blown its engine, Justin.
Oh, and that's not good coming off the corner exit. You have to wonder if those temps may be starting to really play a factor. We'll see right here. See, going through the gears, similar situation coming through second. Yeah, that's got to be temps. Just in second gear.
He does the right thing, though, Justin. There's cars coming up from behind. He pulls to the side of the track immediately, resets down onto pit road. But a shame for Tyler Groff, who was doing pretty good on the day, I must say. And day done, and through no fault of his own then.
Very unfortunate as well in that circumstance, but he had been having a quietly solid race too. But back to that battle. I think Blocker's got the upper hand for all this with those advantages on the pushes to pass available. So we'll have to see if he can close it in.
Yeah, we've got Soups on jumping into the YouTube chat, debating the semantics and grammar about push to pass and pushes to pass. I think he's technically right, but I prefer push to passes because he's trying to pass multiple cars. As you can see, it illuminates once more on the tower. Stouffer, Martinez, and Sandman. So let's go check in with a couple of those cars. It's side by side with Martinez and Kalisto down into the chicane. And Sage Karam's teammate now in 13th position. 4 places gained on the day. Stouffer and Sandman still illuminated as they work their way in. And Chris Stouffer, Indiana's own, Justin, 8 positions gained. It's not been a race where we've really seen too many on-track passes. Those who have done it have made the strategy work, and the likes of Matt Taylor, Chris Stouffer, and Ricky Harding as well, who's up 10 positions, as Christopher Reagan 13 on the day. Very good drives from those drivers.
Yeah, they've been getting more consistent as the race has gone on, and for Ricky Harding in particular, several major saves to be able to straighten up the race car. But now it becomes the thought process of, can you hold on to those spots? Can you get yourself some valuable points? Because it's been a race where attrition has been minimal. Outside of 2 blown engines, only 2 drivers have gone out of the race with incidents. It's been a very clean race today, but it looks like at the very least we may have a move coming up here, at least a peak.
Reagan wants position 14 down the inside of Matt Houston in the team race for his car. He goes deep, though. That will open the door maybe into turn 9, but I think the 19 machine doesn't want to push the issue at this part of the track. Henry Bennett gets on the button, now 1.5 seconds clear of his teammate Brian Carey, who has gotten on par Stefan Larkamp. So those 2 drivers into 9th and 10th. Word from Tyler Groff, Justin, you've heard, it was just those engine temps, hard to manage, and just come unstuck for the number 26 car.
Especially when you're close like this potentially. And I think that's where some of the drivers may start to think about that management is, have you been managing those temps throughout this race? Have you been paying attention to where those temperatures are around the 285 mark to make sure you don't pop the motor? Because any hotter than that, it can cause problems as here comes the push to pass.
It was late on the button as well. I thought he was not going to try and get the move done. Houston will try and stick it for the moment, but the purple machine very confident under the brakes and gets the move done up into that 14th position on the day. 22nd, for the 19 machine. We'll jump back to that battle for third as Joshua Chin burns 1 more of his push to passes, the final one that he gets on the day. And you can see separation starting to form them between the top 4, Justin. I do wonder how close Conor Harrington and Joshua Chin will try and race each other with 4 laps left to go.
I think the tough part for Chin, though, is he doesn't have to push the passes to try and battle with his fellow teammate here. So that's going to make it that much more difficult.
Brian Beard.
Probably get it done.
Still crashing as Andrew Kinsella will come around the outside of turn number 1, straight to the RaceSpotTV replay machine. Justin, let's take a look what happened to the driver of the 5 car.
And it looks like this time he was losing it a little bit coming to the corner apex, in fact. He was starting to get a little bit fishtaily when he hit the brakes. I believe he may have tapped the very edge of the grass, coming right about there with the left rear. And right when it came across the curbing, it just completed the job and had to lock it down and ride the Armco. That destroys his front wing as a result here.
Unfortunate end to the day because he was doing quite well, working up in the top 10 at times. 3 laps to go then. Number of battles further down in your field is Ricky Harding, and you can see Joe Branch in the Coca-Cola colors coming through the inner loop. Don't find themselves 1 lap down. Adam Blocker gets on the button, builds a bit of a buffer to Conor Harrington. I wonder if at this point he's also going to start trying to go for that fastest lap, Justin. 1 used here. He's got a bit too much traffic, I think, to really do anything this time around.
At least at the moment, he thought about it, I think, to try and utilize the slipstream, but he's got himself 3 push-to-passes if he wants to try it again here in the next couple laps. But the tough part's going to be getting into the 126s, let alone the fastest lap of the race, because Karam's just been that lights out. He's in the 127.5s in the clean traffic for comparison's sake. And even when he's been caught up in traffic, he's been the quickest car on the racetrack. So to get the fastest lap, you need to be very precise and have the perfect opportunity to utilize it.
I will say something, Justin. There was some conversation about this setup in the lead up to the race from some of the drivers. Only one driver reporting any sort of engine overheating issues, and therefore, you know, the decision was made to stick with the setup as was. And I will say, I agree with Soupson. It's nice having some extra factors that drivers have to deal with. It's a bit of attrition, and I think something that often in the sim world that you really don't think about. And not just the fact that you can blow an engine, but recently on the iRacing service, especially for this Dallara IR18, when you run your engine slightly hotter, you do find you get less power as well.
Yeah, that's been an increasing notice, is you want to get that engine cooler to be able to get the max amount of performance. In many cases, the hotter it gets, the more it ends up stuffing that engine essentially with the hot oil temps, the hot water temps, and makes it difficult to reach the peak RPMs and the proper torque in the engine. So it's just a balancing act now, as well as to make sure you keep an eye on those temperatures.
Something's happened to the Sandman coming back onto the cup layout. Very tricky turn 9. Car always wants to slip around there. Just about holds onto it, Justin. And let's ride on board here and take one more look. The track falls away from you as you get on the power, and it's something we see a lot more common, and I'm surprised we haven't seen it more often today.
Yeah, it's been a surprisingly clean race with very little attrition, as talked about, very little mistakes. Well, there's one mistake.
And James Poulsen at turn 9 just proves my point, Justin. He'll have to tow back to pit road. I think that right front being completely detached from the car. White flag in the air, but let's take a look at this very quickly.
And just looked like similar mistake to Nunez before, where he went up in the marbles. This time it was enough to break the axle rod and break off that tire. Unfortunate on the final lap for that to happen in this race from a decent position.
A heartbreak. I mean, he was another car doing fairly well. Qualified down the field in 29th position. Was working up in the top 20. Sage Karam then in through the bus stop chicane for the final time, sweeping his way into a 3rd victory from upstate New York. He's going to write himself into the Lionheart history books, Justin, and despite the fact that he missed out on our race last time out, championship standings will start to swing back in the 2 cars' favor, and 2 cars at the front of this field. Sage Karam, Adam Blocker, a championship fight once more between those 2 cars.
It's been an incredible drive from Sage Karam from the get-go, lightning quick, and we were expecting him to be this quick. He was perfect from the jump, executed his marks, and was mighty comfortable on both the tire compounds, made it look easy at the front today.
Left it late to go on pole, but from pole, almost undisturbed for victory. Not lights to flag because of the way the strategy cycled out, but Sage Karam, for a 3rd consecutive year here in Watkins Glen, takes victory at the SimXperience Grand Prix of Watkins Glen, presented by Chris Fowler Racing. His 2nd victory of the season, 9th in his Lionheart IndyCar career, and a championship standings will start to look very favorable for the IndyCar driver. Battle between Henry Bennett and Matt Taylor will come all the way to the line, but should be Matt Taylor up 6 positions on the day, able to hold on to the 8th position. It was Adam Blocker across the line in 2nd with Conor Harrington in 3rd. Joshua Chin in 4th. Ryan Otis rounds out the top 5. Aaron Morgan, an impressive 6th position. A driver that has really made his name over the last couple of months. Some impressive performances. But the name that everyone will be talking about as we head out of upstate New York, Justin, Sage Karam, who heads back to Indianapolis in just a couple of weeks' time, focusing on his Indy 500 campaign.
Just absolutely impressive once more for Sage Karam. Dominant from the get-go. And that celebration is going to be absolutely huge. He is just unstoppable at Watkins Glen in these past couple of years.
And I'm taking a look at the track facts. Sage is giving us a very slow victory lap and the opportunity to talk about lots and lots of things here. But Adam Blocker has not led that many laps in this track. He has won a couple of years ago, but Karam has led 66 laps coming into this race, Justin. He'll be very close to 100, and I think if he returns next year, you know, his real schedule permitting, he'll be looking very good to make it 4 victories in a row. He's become the first to do 3 in a row, so he's one up Jake Wright. One more. What's the challenge for Sage Karam?
I think right now the main focal point is, can he get himself in the championship conversation fully? And that's the tough part in terms of where he is points-wise, especially with the tough start to the season. And of course, missing a race early on. There's a chance, though, depending on how his schedule permits, he can do it with how he's been able to perform as he gets a little bit of help for his celebration.
He was slowing down, to be fair. I'm not sure exactly what took place there, but you have to assume broken suspension on the Hyperx machine for Sage Karam. I do want to take a look, if we can, at what happened there. Just a bit of after-the-fact shenanigans for the race winner. See if we can pick this one up. Going very slowly, as you can see here, Justin. Oh, there's some technical issues. I think that's what happens here. He reappears right in front of Adam Blocker. Nowhere to go, and I'm sure no malice intended there either.
Apparently minimized on the sim side, unfortunately, is what hearing on the radio. So for Karam, though, it doesn't matter. He's still the race winner in this one.
I tell you what, 37 laps later, victory for Karam for a 3rd year in a row. Let's go take a look at those final race results, brought to you by Carnox. Sage Karam for the number 2 car, victor from 8 seconds from the defending series champion Adam Blocker. Dominant display once more on the road courses. Our private label Team Hype, they'll be happy with 3rd and 4th, but Joshua Chin 2nd to 4th. His teammate Conor Harrington pips him then for a podium position here from Watkins Glen. The Lionheart Retro Series champion Ryan Otis across the line to complete the top 5 with Aaron Morgan staying where he qualified. Top 6 finish for him. Very impressive drive for the Graphics LPM driver. He's joined by his teammate Mike Razmas, who finishes in 7th position. Matt Taylor in 8th, up 6 positions on the day. Henry Bennett and Brian Carey make it 2 of the Adrenaline Motorsports Reds cars in the top 10 as they fight with private label Team Hype. Stefan Larkamp 11th, Damon Martinez in 12th. Lots of finishes on the lead lap, which is always good to see. Lionel Kalisto, Chris Dofer beating out Andrew Kinsella. I'm sure Chris Dofer will be quite happy with that one. The Sandman, who we thought at one point might have had some technical issues, recovers to 16th with Brian Beard in 17th. He'll be disappointed with that finish. But Jason Galvin, winner 1 week ago, comes home across the line in 18th with Jason Brophy recovering to 19th after, I'm sure, what was a rather treacherous and entertaining experience for him in the private label Team Hype 88. Ricky Harding rounds out the top 20. Christopher Reagan, Joe Branch, Matt Houston, Samuel Ryman, final cars on the lead lap with Chris Fowler, Brian Greenlee, Tony Schowen, Jay Brandt, Richie Hearn, and Mike Rigney rounding out the top 30. And then our final 6 cars, Luis Gonzalez, Nunez, James Paulson, Tyler Groff. A couple of cars retiring earlier in the race, Scott Holmes, Ron Hacker, and Adam Fraser. Let's make our way down into the Hyperx victory lane then, but before we get there, let's work our way into the Hyperx post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by Hyperx, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. And standing by in victory lane, let's see if Sage Karam is ready. The contact we saw after the fact was apparently caused by Sage trying to make his way into our TeamSpeak server, and now he's standing by with Justin Prince in the HyperX victory lane.
Sage, for the third straight season, you are a winner at Watkins Glen International, and this time in very dominant fashion. 32 of 37 laps led, and the fastest lap by about a full second plus just about. First of all, how was it from your viewpoint as you took home the checker flag by more than 8 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good race for me. Obviously, I was able to lock in fastest lap and didn't have any incident points, so yeah, pretty perfect day. I just, I knew the first lap was going to be huge with trying to get away from the draft, so I burned one push to pass, and I was focusing when I was practicing earlier today on just like my outlaps and stuff, just to see like how to make the car go faster on cold tires, and I don't know, that just seemed to be the difference. It seemed like my outlaps were pretty strong compared to people, and also just that first lap of the race I was able to get out of draft range. So from there, it was basically just hit my marks, and I'm comfortable at this track, and I just think I was able to be consistent and fast at the same time, and that helped. And obviously, fuel didn't really come into question today, so I was able to just kind of run 100% the whole time. So that's fun when you can just go and not really worry. When you're trying to save fuel and stuff, usually that's when mistakes happen. So other than that, I was just hoping I didn't get caught up in lap traffic or anything like that, and I had one car spin in front of me with like 2 laps to go, so that was a little sketchy, but other than that, pretty smooth race.
Looked very smooth in that fastest lap. What did you do on that fastest lap? Because when we looked afterwards, you were out of push to passes. How did you set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:26.2, blistering quick, only one of 2 drivers to set a time in the 1:26s all day?
Yeah, so I knew when the tire life was at its best, and I knew for the last stint the track was going to be a little bit cooler than the beginning of the race. So when I got new reds on, and when I was at that lap where I felt I could attack, I burned about, I think, like 5 push to passes just to try and make sure I got the fastest lap of the race. So that lap's definitely not legit by any means, because it's all push to pass, but it was a good lap, as far as just hitting my marks and everything, and I'm not sure how much faster I could have gone.
You mentioned the comfortability at Watkins Glen. What makes this place so good for you as a driver? Because you're fast when it comes to the IndyCar series here. You've been fast here in the Retro series. What makes this track mesh well for you as a driver?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's, when you got the bus stop and some faster speed corners, a little bit of off-camber corners, you just really got to trust the car, and I don't know, I just feel like I have a good trust with the car and feel for it. So this track suits me, which is weird because in real life this is like one of my least favorite tracks, but for some reason in the sim I'm fast here. So I wish it would just translate in real life too. That'd be kind of cool. So yeah, I don't know. It's just I get on with it well. I like these tracks that have faster corners. There's not a lot of real slow corners here, just a handful of them. So like a track like this and like Mosport or something, those are tracks that I've always enjoyed and have done well at.
Thank you very much for your time, Sage. Congratulations on the victory.
Yep, thank you guys.
So a third trip into victory lane for Sage Karam. I'm sure he'll be pretty chuffed at how that one went. Next up, let's bring in second place Adam Blocker, looking for another Lionheart IndyCar Series crown. Adam, important pass at the start there to get on past Joshua Chin, but not really able to get close enough to challenge Sage Karam. He broke out of draft range and made things a bit too tough for you there.
Yeah, I mean, overall it was kind of a tough night. Yeah, qualified decent. I don't think I had anything for the laps that Josh and Sage put in. I could have done a better lap, but not something that would have beat them. So yeah, I was kind of happy at the start to be able to pass Josh at the beginning, and then yeah, I was really just trying to manage the reds because I wasn't sure. I thought people were going to be sliding at the end of the stint more than they were, and they didn't really. So I probably managed them a bit too much in the first stint. And I was able to go long at least the first stint and put on the blacks late a lap and get a bonus point. But after that, really, I kind of knew Sage was gone, so it was just about keeping Conor and Josh behind me, which wasn't too bad, and just bringing home with no inks to get another bonus point. So,
in terms of the strategy, was there ever any concern that you may get jumped by Harrington and Chin there? Because it was not as close as maybe I thought it was, but there was a point in the last 5 laps or so when Harrington and Chin were burning their final push to passes trying to get close, and maybe just with their tires up to temperature, they got close enough that I'm sure you would have been looking in your rearview mirror.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely nervous about it, but I saw, particularly in the second, I wasn't worried about the first pit stop cycle because we were switching onto blacks from reds, so it was kind of a wash, like there wasn't really that much of an undercut. But the second stint, and I was doing decent times on reds, but the second stint, yes, there was obviously a danger, fresh reds versus old blacks. But I was looking at the standings, and it looked like they were going to come out in traffic. It turned out they didn't come out in too much traffic, but I had enough of a buffer over them that I was able to kind of manage it and just come out in front. So.
What do you think about these road courses, Adam? It's one where you've been very successful in the past, but Sage has been very dominant so far. We'll have a week off in terms of the road courses. In a couple of rounds, we'll head to Mid-Ohio. What's your hope there for being able to challenge for a victory? Because if Sage is going to maybe try and challenge mostly on the road, it does mean in the championship standings, you have to start thinking about him trying to close that gap.
Well, Mid-Ohio, I'm not too optimistic because I'm going to be racing back at Indy Simulation, which has a great rig, and I want to thank Kerry for the support. It's really awesome what he's doing for me at Phoenix and Mid-Ohio there. I'm sure I'll be able to get a solid result, but just being unfamiliar with it, it'll be kind of it'll be tough. But Watkins, Glen, and Long Beach are not necessarily my best road courses, so I'm definitely looking forward to when we go somewhere where I feel like I have a little bit more pace and I can challenge somewhere like Silverstone or Road America or places like that where I feel like I have some really good pace. So,
well, congratulations on the second, Adam. See you in a couple of weeks' time then for more Lionheart IndyCar Series action.
Yep, see you in Kentucky.
So that was your defending series champion. Let's bring on in third place finisher Conor Harrington, who very entertaining start there, Conor, as he got around your teammate up into the podium positions. And from there, a bit of a difficult race, managing the car and not really being able to attack. What was that like from your viewpoint? You still must be satisfied with a podium finish.
Yeah, we're satisfied tonight with a podium finish. Our private label Team Hype Ethica machine was really good. I managed to get around my teammate Josh on the start. And from there, unfortunately, it was just a game of management. We knew going into this race that a lot of the engine temperature stuff was going to be really difficult to deal with. I think after my first stop, I had the engine oil temp warning on my dash for something like 26 laps straight. So, in the pit stop phase when we were trying to undercut Adam, I was looking to attack and I couldn't get on the button because I was afraid of blowing the motor. So, a little bit of a lost opportunity there, maybe to stick it to Adam and gain a little bit of ground, but you can't really be upset when you come into a Lionheart race and you finish on the podium. So.
And in the championship picture as well, I'm sure this is important for you. Came into this race in second position, and I'm sure that gap to blocker will only marginally increase. Now you'll be looking more at Karen from behind. What does the season hold for you? Because it's still very early days, 4 rounds in, but it's looking good for a championship fight for you.
Yeah, well, last season we started off kind of the same way, and then we had some really bad luck. So hopefully this season things will go a little bit better. I think we might have maybe gained a little bit of ground tonight in the team championship as well, which is really exciting for us. Brophy had a good race too, so we're looking at all fronts. So I feel like the more solid results we can put together, the better things is going to be better.
Heading to Kentucky next time out, what's your thought about that one? It will be interesting because after that we head to Mid-Ohio, so two very different type of racetracks, and I think one where you might be feeling pretty confident about your chances at both of them.
I wish I could say I'd be confident with at Mid-Ohio. I've actually never turned a racing lap there, and I'm actually not even sure I'd be able to make that. So that may be one of my my drop races. But yeah, I mean, Kentucky's going to be tough. It's probably going to be a lot of guys on top of each other, and who really knows? If you can kind of win the sort of lottery that is a Lionheart oval race. There's a lot of weird things that can happen, so we just want to put ourselves in the right place to take advantage when the opportunities come to us.
Well, Conor, congratulations on the podium. See you in a couple of weeks' time then from Kentucky for what I'm sure should be a very entertaining race.
Yep, have a good night. Thanks, guys.
Impressive day then for the private label Team Hype Machine. 3rd and 4th should extend the championship gap, especially with Adrenaline Motorsports Red struggling. Justin, we will return in a couple of weeks' time from Kentucky. 2 races in May. Mid-Ohio very much different as well. We are getting word that the race results that we showed just a few moments ago are very unofficial. It sounds like a few drivers forgot that they had to use both tire compounds.
That is very critical to remember, because for this type of racing, you have to be able to dial in your strategy. You have to be able to be on the ball for that type of stuff. That's going to be major, to say the very least, for some of these drivers. But when it comes to Kentucky, it's going to be an interesting race, because it's a track that's known for its interesting racing. It's a track known for its interesting lines, and as well as for one of the most difficult turn 3s of auto racing. So it's going to be where drivers are going to have a lot of speed carried around, but I think a lot of decent passes and battling around that circuit.
And I just want to get your thoughts here, Justin. We're 4 rounds into this now, and I think Sage might have honestly had a pretty good chance of saying that he'd have 3 victories on the season if he hadn't missed the last race from Phoenix. What do you think the championship hopes look like for him? Because Adam Blocker's looking strong as well. Harrington always is a strong contender. If he can keep this form up, we might have a 3-way fight for the championship this year.
I think Karam's definitely still got a shot if he can keep up the consistency he's shown in the past few races. If he can perform and stay out of trouble, he's definitely a factor. But the interesting mark is going to be how things fare out for the rest of the drivers in turn, because Blocker's going to have to keep things up. We've seen him have to navigate through some of the traffic in recent weeks, for example. In other words, I think it's still a wide-open championship. It's very early on to tell, but at least some of your favorites are coming into complexion.
And like you said, long road all the way into December, and Auto Club are Lionheart Racing Series finales there. Not just the IndyCars, but the Speedway and the Retro Series as well. But it's time to say goodbye, at least for now. Still got many more rounds in this championship yet to come. Before we say goodbye, let's say thank you to some of the names that make the Lionheart Racing Series possible. First up, it's Butt Kicker. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit has the missing driver-to-car connection, providing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by Hyperx, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, Hyperx knows we're all gamers. For more information on Hyperx products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders.
SimXperience. The SimXperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional SimXperience racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimXperience ecosystem, visit SimXperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use the promo code minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube or like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel.
It's not just those named, though. There's even more that help power this series. Up on your screen, you can head on over to the Lionheart Racing Series website if you want to learn more about the names up on screen, or if you want to get involved with the 3 different competition Lionheart has to offer. We'll be back next week for Lionheart Retro Series action, but next week it's all about Retro Series. The week after, we'll be back for DW12 and IR18 action at Kentucky on the minds of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. If you want to stay involved with the Lionheart Series, head on over to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where you can stay involved with all 3 of these competitions. ESTV has you covered for all of your esports action. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram for them. And if you love sim racing coverage, well, subscribe to us on YouTube by hitting the red button and the bell next to it as well to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series we get to cover. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, but for now, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. I've been joined by the wonderful Justin Prince. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our TV cameras from Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com. Additional car cameras provided by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. Live timing powered by our partners at timing71.org, where you can follow along with the best in the real and virtual worlds of motorsport using their world-class suite of data analysis tool. So long and goodbye from Watkins Glen. We're at Sage Karam in Hyperx Victory Lane as he looks to try and claim his first ever Lionheart IndyCar Series champion.